I think by now pretty much everyone out there is aware of the recent attack on Republican lawmakers in Virginia. Now, before I go into this video, I want to say first off and foremost that I do not condone this act at all. This act of violence was unwarranted. It's despicable. There's nothing positive about it. I'm not going to say one good thing about this person or what they did because it is all abhorrent. Now, beyond that, I'm also not going to say that violence is never the answer, because I always see people say that and I'm like, really? Because I've found different in my life. I found that sometimes violence is the answer. Like I've taught my kids, I have saved myself and others lots of strife and turmoil in the future by knocking someone on their ass who deserved it before they were allowed to get out of hand completely. So I think violence is sometimes the answer. I mean, if we look through history, there's been a lot of positive change brought about by violence. So I'm never going to say violence is not the answer. I think the only people that ever say that are people in power that don't want to be taken out of power. So I'm not going to say that, but I am going to say I do not support what happened. But now I'm going to say some things that are probably going to get me in trouble, probably going to piss off a lot of people out there. So, you know, if you're easily offended, if you're very sensitive, go watch a cat video or something right now. Do not watch this video. If you decide to go ahead and watch this video and you get offended, you might unsub or something like that. But here's one little request I have for you people. If you do unsub, just go. Don't tell me you unsubbed. I don't need to know. My viewers don't need to have that cluttering up the comment section. Just leave. If you've got some, hurt feelings you want to express, write them in your journal, share them with your minister, whatever you want to do, but don't share them here because no one really cares. So, goodbye. But that being said, what I want to say is there's actually two things I want to point out here. Two things that I think that this is a perfect example of. Neither of them really a positive thing. The first one I want to say that this is an example of why lawmakers don't do positive things for gun rights. They don't take action. They give lip service, but then they never really do anything. We've been waiting on the Republicans to do something pro-gun since they took completely over the government, and they haven't. And this is why. Because they don't want you and me being able to fight back against them. They don't want the citizens to be armed. They don't want you to have the power to fight back when you're fed up. Now, this is just one crazy guy that acted prematurely. But imagine if that was everybody. If everybody got fed up with politicians and were sick of it, weren't going to take it anymore, they'd be in a pretty dire situation. They don't want that to happen. This is a perfect example of what happens when someone who's armed and capable of defense gets sick of being oppressed. The oppressors come under fire. And they don't want that to happen, especially not on a large scale. So they're never truly going to work for you and me to be self-sufficient or be armed. That's not going to happen, and this is a perfect example of why that's not going to happen. This is also a perfect example of what they count on if it does happen. They count on themselves being protected by a vastly superior force. In this case, the Capitol Hill Police Department, which, if you're not familiar with the Capitol Hill Police, they're not really police. They're a private standing army to protect the politicians. And during the onslaught, during the attack, multiple counts say that politicians were on their phones screaming into their phones that security needs to do their job, that the Capitol Hill Police need to get out there and do their job and protect them. So that private army is set there to defend them, and they were calling on them for defense. And in this case, they prevailed. So that's a good example of sometimes a bad guy with a gun, the best way to deal with him is good guys with guns. In this case, the Capitol Hill Police came in, good guys with guns, and stopped the bad guy with guns before he could kill anybody, because no one was killed in this attack because the Republicans were so well defended by good guys with guns. But they count on that for them. They don't want that for us. They don't want us to be able to be protected by good guys with guns. They just want that for themselves in case we ever rise up. So I think that's a perfect example of that too. Because like I said, the Capitol Hill Police Department, they're not really a police department. They're just a security force, a private army for politicians. Much like the New York City Police Department is basically just a security force for the wealthy in Manhattan. So there's some things I think that really echo in this event that can tell us about what's going on now, as in politicians don't want us armed, and what the future could look like. A bunch of us being unarmed with Republicans and Democrats and politicians having all of the advantages, having their own little private armies. That's why I think that militarized police departments are a bad thing, because they don't serve the Constitution. They serve whoever pays them. They serve the politicians that hire them, that pay them. That's all they serve. And I don't think we should allow, private armies to be roaming our streets, like in New York City, whose allegiances are just to those who hire them, not to us the people. So I think there's a lot of lessons we can learn in what happened there. One, we can learn that this is not called for. It's not the time for this kind of thing. But like I said, we can also see how politicians don't want us to be armed, and we can see on how they plan on reacting if we ever do rise up.